So now we move into like one of the most important frameworks I saw in the book. So you introduce craft thinking. Maybe you can walk us through the framework. What does craft actually mean?
Yeah, let's talk about that. So the way I like to describe talking to an AI, especially when you're personally chatting with it or engaging it or even designing a new AI system, the way I like to think about it is the intern showed up for the first day of work and they have amnesia. You have to tell them, here's my company. This is what the company does. You have to tell them the context. What's going on? Who big's the company? What do you do? But more importantly, they even forgot what job they're supposed to do. So you have to tell them the role. Oh, you're going to be working in the marketing department. Great. Fantastic. You're working in the marketing department as a marketing assistant. Great. What does that mean? Well, these are your activities. These are your actions. These are what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to help with LinkedIn. You're supposed to do press releases, or you're supposed to help with podcasts. Doesn't matter. You've got to give them a job duties. Yeah. And then the F is the formatting. Your company has their own brand colors. They have their own style. You have to tell them what good looks like. This is how we do things. So, and then finally the T, what's the target? What does success look like? What the audience, what would make them happy or good and that sort of stuff. So that's the craft. And you don't have to get it. The point about it is you don't have to get it right the first time. You just have to remember, you ask something, you clarify it, and you go, oh, I forgot to tell them about the format. They gave me an answer. It was perfectly good, but it's not in our colors for our company, or it's not our tone. You just add it, just like you would tell an employee, hey, that's good, but it's not quite right. Hey, do this. As you get better about it, it becomes natural. One thing that's the most important, the C and the T. I've used the word intentionality. Where you're starting, your context, and your target, where you're going. The middle stuff, you fill in as you go. It's important, but it's not critical, right?
So which part do executives actually struggle the most in this framework? And can this framework actually help people become better decisions makers, even without AI?
Yes, absolutely. So I have a great quote I like to say. I have a colleague who purchased the book, and he says, wow, he has a review. He says, it's like getting two books in one. It's an easy read. It's fast. It's not academic. It's practical. He goes, the first part is like review on prompt engineering. Well, I don't like the word engineering. It's using chat, like prompting. And then he goes, the second book's a better book on thinking and decision making. And that really made me happy to hear him say that and call it out. So that's really what the book's all about. It's sort of two books in one.
So it means craft framework is actually a leadership framework that happens to use AI than an AI framework.
Absolutely. So it's a way to get awareness out there that AI is really augmenting leadership and people and thinking.
Okay. We'll move into the boardroom, executive leadership. So you spend considerable time thinking about executives, private company, and governance. What do CEOs misunderstand most about AI? What are you seeing?
So let's level set for what is governance, because there's a lot of people don't quite understand that. So when certain companies that get of a certain size, whether they're stock companies or private companies, they might choose to have a board of directors. And technically, they're the legal piece that's the legal company. They're the C Corp, the S Corp, whatever. They're the legal part, or limited company. Different countries have different rules, but they're the piece. And they're legally the ones that technically hire the CEO. And then the CEO hires everybody else in the company, right? That's kind of what it does.
Yeah.
CEO's job is to run the company. The board's job is to make sure the CEO is running the company in the way that the shareholders want to get accomplished, that the values that the shareholders want is being accomplished. And that could be stockholders or a family business or a family ownership. It doesn't mean it. So that's the basic dynamics. So the biggest thing that most of the right now that people get wrong is you ask 10 people what AI is and you get 20 answers. So how can you as a board or the executive team or the managers use AI if you can't agree on what it is and what you should be doing.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing they get wrong.
So I like that aren't happening, that should be happening. What role do both play today?
Really, so this does depend upon the audience, the strata. They really should be saying, hey, let's get together and learn how to you're out this AI stuff together. They should be having the conversation of, it's my job as a leader to learn what it is. And it's my job, I can't abdicate it. I can't give it to somebody else to do for me. I need to learn it. Let me give you an example of that, because there was at a meeting, there was a board member. He sat on 2 boards, so very accomplished. I've been on many boards in the past, both companies, $+ companies. And he said, well, after I spoke, why wouldn't you just hire a CTO or a chief AI officer and have them do it? I looked at him, my jaw fell to the floor. I had to stop. I can't believe you are 20, 30 years of skill running businesses and you're asking me this question. And I said that. I said, I can't believe you're asking me that question. What you just told me is you're abdicating your leadership and your judgment and you're handing it to somebody else. Right? Now, they can execute, but you have to tell them what you want to be done and make sure they do it. They're the ones doing it, but you don't tell them. You come up with a plan, monitor it, and do it all yourself. And he could see, he was stunned. He's like, oh. And then he toddled off because he knew that I had hit him over the head. I burst his bubble. That's the biggest thing. People need to take responsibility for their own learning, their own understanding, and managing their fears and managing their hopes and talking to people and getting comfortable with it.
Yeah, they have to be leaders. They don't have to outsource leadership.
Yeah.
So I think AI literacy, boards should engage in AI literacy before discussing AI strategy. So what do you think a board should do if they have no AI expertise? Where should they start? Are you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the quick thing is, first, give yourself grace. It's going to take you, whenever you learn something new, it's like riding a bike. You're going to be wobbly. You're going to fall off. Give yourself grace. And then once you do that, spend the time learning how to ride the bike. Pick one AI tool, and just use it just regularly, and then read a little bit about it and get better and ask yourself why it didn't work and be inquisitive like that 2-year-old that wants to ride the bike. Once you do that, that's the best thing, is learn a little bit, and then suddenly you'll realize, wow, it's an unlock. You're suddenly doing things you never thought you could do.
Yeah. Now back to the book. One phrase from your work really actually stayed with me. You're telling leaders to remain the author of their decisions. And I think the example that you just mentioned earlier on is about that. Can you go a little bit deeper, explain the idea?
Yeah, back to if you push the easy button and just have AI tell you the answer, you're not author of your decision. You just outsourced it to a machine, or the machine that somebody else programmed. So when you buy an AI system and put it in whatever ERP or CRM system, enterprise resource planning or customer relationship management software, you add it to those, you better understand how it's making those choices, because you just bet your company on them doing a good job.
Yeah.
That's the piece that you really have to help leaders understand. They're making decisions all the time, and they need to understand the positives and the risks, and understand that really does require education, and it's the thing that we need to spend a lot more time on.
Yeah, about AI literacy. So how do leaders know they've crossed the line? Yeah, warning signs will tell them someone has outsourced their judgment.
When it's pretty easy, right? Read something and it just sounds like AI, or a company had a very nice, distinctive brand tone and brand voice, and then suddenly it becomes vanilla. It becomes boring. It becomes just like everything else. Or your website design just looks like everybody else's website design. That's very obvious. And you could just feels no creativity, no artistry, just vanilla.
That's
Yeah, I can see you thinking. Like you're going, oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, let's make this a little bit practical. Let's say, suppose I'm a CEO of a 500-person company. Tomorrow morning, what's one exercise I can do with AI that actually improves my thinking instead of simply generating more content? How should executives use AI to challenge their own assumptions?
Perfect. So it can really simply use the craft moniker in the book. I have a link to a custom GPT. It's still valid. And you can say, here's what I'm wanting to do. Use the chat GPT and it'll score your prompt. And then it'll ask you questions and say, here's where you could have been better. And it'll give you a score and it goes, would you like help writing a new one? I'll help write it for you. So you can literally tell the system, hey, help me learn how to do this better. Be judgmental, be a judge, and here's how I'm wanting to be judged.
So is there one question you wish every executive will ask GPT before actually making an important decision?
Yeah. Back to me what you think my intention is. Yeah. Be surprised at the answers you get. So you start your conversation and then one or two sentences later, you say, repeat back what you think my intention is. And then you suddenly realize you didn't give it enough information for it to get you to where you want to go.
Okay. Noting that down.
Yeah.
AI will make leaders more or less human, more overrated.
And so I'm a believer that it's going to allow us to be more human for those of us that value relationships and humanity. So, right, for example, I can write 200 articles. I'm able to share them for basically free with way many more people and impact. And I have people that read every single article and they go, wow, you're just constantly coming up with new things. That's fantastic. I'm giving to the world. And then I have others that read one or two. I could have never have done that in the past. I would have struggled to write one article every 2 weeks because it would have been painful for me.
Sure, yeah.
Right? But I'm now able to get that repetitive stuff done in a way that lets me have these kinds of conversations and move forward and go on a keynote and speak to people and run in the Private Directors Association and run special interest groups and help people understand. Those are things that I can do now, right? So but there's the warning, if I'm the leader that only measures things by how many times I got somebody to click on an advertisement so that my bank account goes up, that's not leadership. That's just extracting value from people and making people waste time and money, right? Yeah. And that's not leadership. So if you're a leader, you're already doing the right things. If you're just chasing, then you're probably not in the leadership round.
So what do you think is the most overrated AI trend presently?
The most overrated AI trend is rushing to prove ROI, because most of the companies have rushed to implement. They failed and they wasted a bunch of money. We all heard in the news where they spent how many millions and millions of dollars on tokens because they were telling people spend tokens. That's obviously good. Well, that was just bad management, bad governance, bad leadership. It should have been, let's learn. Let's go figure out the right projects and what works and what doesn't. Let's manage it. It's new. Nobody knows. So that to me is the most overrated thing, is rushing, not being slow, not being like, I won't change, but being appropriate for your business, your industry, and knowing that there's people ahead of you, and don't rush to. This is one of the biggest failings of humans, right? Maybe I like to play soccer, and so I can suddenly decide to compare my ability to Massick. And I'm like, oh, I'll never be as good as him because I can't ever be on the World Cup and be the world's leading goal scorer. Well, that's ridiculous, right? You were comparing ourselves to other people. Compare yourself to yourself, your own journey, your own abilities. It's the biggest thing. And companies fall in the same trap. They fall in the same trap. And that's the biggest fallacy I see. So it's not really AI. AI is just the flavor of the day that they're rushing to and they're not thinking through.
So, me, I think the most underrated leadership skill is critical thinking. To you, what do you think will be?
Yeah, we're going to go over the 30 minutes here, but no worries. Critical thinking. So wrote a number of pieces about that. Critical thinking is different depending upon the generations. Certain generations that learned how to use Google searches and they never had to do it. They got an answer. It was right. That was what they were paid to do. And then people that are more the baby boomer generation, the elder generation go, oh, these people can't do critical thinking.
Yeah.
You didn't give them a chance to learn, right? You're an idiot. You're dumb. And I like to call them stupid because you didn't even use, you complained that somebody didn't have critical thinking and they didn't even do the critical thinking to realize they asked a dumb question, right? It's not, the critical thinking is just what that generation calls it. To me, critical thinking is all the generations having dialogue and thinking and conversing to solve problems. That's thinking. Critical thinking is when we come together and really dig hard to solve hard problems.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, the label, I don't like the label critical thinking because it tends to make one generation mad at another generation. That's wrong.
Yeah. We have these generation conflicts where the baby boomers are saying that the millennials are lazy, the millennials are saying that the Gen Zs are lazy, and the cycle keeps continuing.
They're going to inherit whatever world goes forward in 10 years. They'll inherit it. They'll figure it out. Humans are smart. You give them a chance. They'll figure it out. They'll figure out what's right then. And these are things that just drive me crazy.
Yeah, like what you mentioned earlier about giving ourselves grace. I think we're beating ourselves too much about it and getting scared and getting carried away by the hype, like you mentioned, social media.
Yeah.
So what is one mistake you think an executive should stop making?
Well, that's the one mistake they should stop making, that I think is back to for the easy button. Really asking the question, am I solving the problem I really want to solve? And is this the place with the greatest leverage? And let me explain what I mean by the greatest leverage. Whenever we look at solving problems, there might be 10 different ways or 10 different ideas. But when you have a big stick and you can use a rock as a fulcrum and you can lever something that's the pebble that's blocking everything. And so it takes time to understand where the leverage is. You can't look at something. Those are the difference between simple problems and complex problems. And companies are complex problems. There's lots of moving parts. So you have to spend time understanding. Otherwise, you're just going to fix one thing and break another thing.
So what is one prediction, if I try to predict what is going to happen in the business world over the next 5 years? What are you going to say?
I will predict that. So first off, every prediction I've made about AI has been faster than I predicted. Okay, the first one. But the second one is with 8 billion people on the planet, all trying to solve different problems, I know there will be things that astound me and astound you and astound our audience, and I'm excited to see those. How that solve that, I don't know. How wins, which company loses, I don't know. I know the companies that are resilient and lifelong learning companies, they have much better odds at riding the changes than that thinks the last 50 years is unchanging.
Okay. All right. Our podcast is called A Transformational Playbook. So every guest leaves our audience with one play they can implement. So if every executive is listening, remember just one lesson from today's conversation. What will it be?
One lesson. I'm going to go back to Boy Scout. When I went camping and we camped at a place, I was always told to leave. We would clean up the campsite at the end. Leave the campsite better than you started. If you're a leader, I would ask you to leave the place better than you started. Whether that's the company, the employees you work, your home, your house, leave it better than you found it.
All right. So how do we get your books? And how do we get in contact with you?
Perfect. First off, you can go to thecraftthinking.ai. There's landing page. It has my contact information, my LinkedIn there as well. Of course, you could just search my name for LinkedIn, Philip Topham. And of course, I respond to everything. And my Substack is there as well. That's the savionai.substack.com. And you find all of those. And I would appreciate, a coffee, and I'll continue to write if you ask me. That's
all right, Philip. Thank you. This has been one of the most thought-provoking conversations I've had. So the thing that stood out to me today is that AI doesn't eliminate leadership. It raises the standard of leadership. The organizations that succeed won't simply have access to better AI. They'll have leaders who ask better questions, think more critically, and remain accountable for the decisions they make. Philip, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. That was a wonderful summary. Thank you, Eric. It's been a pleasure to share with you and your audience some of my lifetime's experiences and my learning of AI.
Yeah, thank you. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to AI Transformational Playbook on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. If this conversation challenged the way you think about AI, share it with a colleague, your leadership team, or your board. The future of AI transformation isn't just about adopting better technology. It's about cultivating better judgment. We'll see you next time on AI Transformation Playbook. Thank you.